Hey y'all, how are y'all doing? As y'all see, it's Friday. Happy Friday to everybody, all the viewers. Dr. Irvin and Mr. Peters will be joining us a little bit shortly, but the title of the show today is Who Has True Authority? So I really wanted to talk about and just show you guys who do you feel like has true authority within our world today, whether it's political leaders or is it us? Do we the people have true authority or not? Oh, and see, look who it is. Hey,
Peter. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
You came in right on time. I literally just said you was on your way.
Oh, well, I try not to disappoint.
Right, you are the star of the show.
No, that would be all. So Ken, you are the maestro of the show. So if I'm the star, you're the maestro. So you got a pretty hefty agenda today. So
yes,
let's lay it out.
So today I was just telling the viewers about the title of the show and the reason why I chose it, which was Who Has True Authority, because I just feel like as we progress through time, you can see even through our current events, it's sometimes it sees that we have true authority, or is it our political leaders who really truly has it, who has the power and the say so in everything. So I first kind of wanted to start it off with something a little fun, I guess you could say. I don't know if you guys remember the Spygate incident about 2008 with the Patriots. And so Robert Kraft and everything was going on with it. Actually, the incident, if y'all don't know about football, the Patriots were being accused of actually hacking.
First of all, let me just say I'm so impressed that you know about football. Let me just
Yes, it's very interesting. But I think this case was different because the Patriots, they were accused of hacking into other teams' facilities and looking at their film and learning all their play calls and everything. So which is why it was called Spygate. And so at the time, actually, the late senator, the Pennsylvania senator, his name was Arlen Specter, if I'm saying it right. And so he actually had the case up. He was trying to push for that case, trying to make sure that the Patriots were actually held accountable. But he was slid some hush money by our good old 44th Donald Trump back then. And so this just kind of showed, I feel like, who really has true authority. And I feel like in this incident, money did, because for a while Donald Trump was actually supporting Mr. Specter's, because he is the senator of Pennsylvania. He was supporting his campaign for years and years and years. But it's this new ghostwriter that's coming out saying that was the reason why the whole case was just shut down. And it's crazy how you can see football and politics kind of plays a part in it, because in a way, nobody was really held accountable. And the only reason why I think Donald Trump really slid him some money was about Robert Kraft, because Robert Kraft also supported Donald Trump's businesses and stuff like that. So I don't know if you knew about that. You have anything you want to say?
Oh, yeah, I'm well versed in it. You're talking about sports. And I think, in layman's terms, the whole reason why that's an issue is about fairness, right? And fairness and equity in sports to make sure you have fair competition. If you don't have fair competition, or at least the appearance of fair competition in sports, then that could really destroy sports very, very quickly. So I understand why the NFL took it seriously. And then on top of that, when you have a team that is a dynasty and has continued to win, now people are calling into question, okay, wait a minute. How are you winning? Are you legitimately doing that? Or is this spying you're doing giving you a competitive advantage? And I think that's been what that was the issue. That was at the heart of the issue. So I think from that perspective, it gave a lot of people pause. I mean, it wasn't like there was a short line of people hating the Patriots anyway.
Right.
If you throw that on top of it, then, I mean, come on.
And it's crazy because I kind of talk about this with my dad a lot. because and now every sport is always like replay. And I was like, did they really do that back then, Dad? He was like, no. He said if they did, a lot of championships, a lot of bowls will be overturned, a lot of calls will be overturned. And I was like, wow, you are right about that one, so who knows if this was actually taken seriously and people actually held accountable, the Patriots might have not had a lot of championships, but who knows?
Well, I mean, there was a time where the call on the field was the call.
Yep.
Right, wrong, and different. That was the call. And then when replay first came on the scene, there was only a few things that were reviewable.
Oh, okay.
And now it has.
It's too reviewable now.
Right, too reviewable. So I guess the question is, where's that balance in that? Because games have gone from being 2 hours, 30 minutes to 3.5 hours. So it's just like, where is the balance in it, I guess?
Exactly.
But it depends on what the call, right? Because if the call is in your favor, you don't want the replay. If the call is against you, you want the replay. So it's right. Either way you go.
Either way. But now we're just gonna move on to one of these cases that I actually found, and I thought it was just really interesting how I didn't understand, but basically in the state of Ohio, the lieutenant at the time, which her name was, I want to say Janice McGean. I don't know. She issued an executive order while the governor was out of town to end all the mask mandate. And I was just wondering, I was like, how can a lieutenant do that and end the mask mandate while the governor was out of town? And in this instant right here, I don't know if you remember our last show, we were talking about the House and making sure that the Democrats kind of regain control. Well, both of the lieutenant of Idaho and the governor are both Republicans. And I kind of thought when I was looking at that, I was like, Mr. Peters definitely was talking about trying to regain which house should regain power, regain the power of the House. And it was just kind of confusing because right here, I feel like it confuses the people because who has true authority over who can end a mask mandate and who can't. But not only that, I feel like it kind of shows, it kind of plays the Republicans' cards in a way, and it kind of weakens them because this isn't the first time in news right now where it's showing that Republicans are going back and forth with supporting which and who. So,
at the end of the day, you got to remember what politics is about. Politics is about positioning, power, and strategy. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's a chess game. It's not checkers, and everything you do is to make sure that you maintain power or gain power. Make sure you align with the base of your constituency. Don't get that confused with the base of your constituency, meaning the people that put you in office. All right. And so their constituency and my constituency may be very different. So it's the base of your constituency. And then thirdly, it is acting in a way and carrying out decisions in a way that support the base of your constituency, but not just the base, but the power of that base.
Okay.
So there's some very fine line there. So when you think about it, I only gain more power by doing a couple of things. I gain more power by the way I'm able to grasp and build the long time support and deepen my support level in the power structure of my base.
Okay.
Why did I say power structure, not just my base?
You were saying your power structure because, hold on, let me think. I'm trying to make sure. You also still have to be in line with your constituents. Didn't you say that earlier? And I feel like that's kind of where you still gain your power at the same time because you need support. Or am I looking at it a little differently?
Well, here's where I want you to really think like a poli-sci student, right?
Okay.
I am saying, so there's two things. There's two ways I could have said it. I could have said, I'm going to make decisions that align with my base, right? The constituency of my base.
Okay.
But that's not what I said. I said, I'm going to choose to make decisions that align with the power structure of the constituency of my base. Okay. Why did I make a special notation to say the power structure within my base and not just my base? It's a very fundamental thing when I tell you what it is, but I'm curious to see if you can sort it out.
I'm really thinking about this, Mr. Peters, but I don't know. You're gonna really have to inform me. Like, I'm really trying to break this down.
What does it take to win elections?
The people, really.
But what else does it take? What does it take to have a robust campaign?
Money and power.
And why does it take money? Because so let's look. If you got a statewide election, why does it take more money? Because you got to have a impressive ground game to truly canvass all the areas and really garner your support. And the more people you can pay, particularly to implement that structure, make sure that structure is strong, that structure is effective, the people are well trained, they're well coached, they're well supported, they got the resources they need. That takes money. The reason why I say I'm not aligning just to my base, what if all my base don't have no money? So really, when you really get down to the funding of the campaign and where your funding comes from, that's the constituency of the power structure of your base. So really, who am I listening to? I'm listening to the people that have the money to fund me, that wants me to carry out the decisions that are important to them. So it's really about the power structure of your base.
Wow.
Never forget that.
And you know what? And now that you just said that, it kind of makes sense to tie it back to the Spygate incident, because at the time Donald Trump was funding Senator Specter's campaigns and stuff. So that's why he dropped that whole case with Robert Kraft and everything. And, bad publicity, because, Robert Kraft is also Donald Trump's friend. So it makes sense. Senator Specter had to align with the power of his base and everything. So it makes sense. Money. It makes the world go round. I
mean, that's what they say. I'm just, when you think about it, factually, even when you go on to your political aspirations, which I see you doing one day, you too, because we don't typically come from, if I take African Americans for the most part, there are some exceptions, but we typically don't come from a long history or line in our family of what we call generational wealth.
Exactly.
Right. We have a lot of first generation wealth, a lot of first generation middle class, but we don't have a legacy historically of generational wealth.
Right.
We have some prominent families, yes. We don't have a lot of them, meaning if you compare it to other ethnic groups. So if that's the case, that means when you go out and you build a campaign, you've got to fundraise, and you got to do it tremendously, because you can't self-fund yourself, right?
Exactly.
So now, who's funding you? Who's carrying that drug? I don't care. This is just my personal opinion. If you got to raise it, let's take a presidential election, right?
Okay.
Presidential election, you got to raise hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm gonna say that one more time. Over there, hundreds of millions of dollars. That hundred of millions of dollars you raise, they have a voice.
A big voice, a loud voice.
Otherwise, you don't get that. So what you try to do is to make sure, the smartest thing to do politically is try to get yourself in a position where you can raise the overwhelming majority of your funds from a position of the power structure of the base that you are most aligned with your views and ideologies.
Okay.
That's an ultimate win. If you don't do that and you raise the money from outside of the base that's closest to the way you think and your ideologies and your concepts and your proposals, now you're going to have a forever ending battle now. Because they're not going to be happy with you because you're not carrying through the things that matter to them. You really was misaligned with the way you rose your money. So that's a fundraising failure. So fundraising is strategy too.
It is.
All money is good. Somebody told me one time, said all money might be good money, but all money not the right money for you. So you gotta.
Yeah. That's a new one right there. All money. Right. That's a new one. No, I definitely agree. And you know what? I don't want to get too off topic, but I kind of want to challenge what you were saying. So also, while I was doing some new research, I was still keeping up with the intersection, everything, and with the commission and pushing that bill about, the Capitol attack. And it was still saying how some of the Republicans, only six out of the few Republicans are actually supporting it. And this was I didn't want to talk too much on it, but right here, I still don't see who really has true authority over this bill really and pushing it, because at the end of the day, this whole attack has to get investigated some way, somehow, and it still has to deal with money. And so who should really, which side should really be supported right here, Mr. Peters? I'm kind of at odds, because, I'm still trying to use what you were saying and put it to terms and compare it to that and apply it to that. But it still seems like, I think some Republicans, while I was reading some of the articles on CNN, they were saying they're going to try to have some filibuster votes and try to push back the decision of this case even more.
Well, they did. Oh, now we got the illustrious one to join the conversation.
All right.
Let's get him in here.
Who is Dr. Irvin?
Hello, Kennedy.
It's nice.
Hello, Leslie.
Hey, Doc, how you doing?
I'm good.
Look, man, we Kennedy, why don't you get Doc up to speed? I don't know how much he's had a chance to hear.
So basically, we were discussing, at first we kind of discussed about the Spygate. I want to give you a rundown so we can build you up to what Mr. Peters was talking about. So we're talking about the Spygate and how recently it was a ghostwriter saying how the late Senator Arlen Specter of Pennsylvania, he kind of raised this case about the Spygate with the Patriots, because I don't know if you remember where, they were accused of spying on other teams, trying to learn their play calls and stuff like that, and how it was really illegal. And at the time, the senator was really pushing for that case, but then all of a sudden the case just dropped because good old Donald Trump slid him some hush money, because, Donald Trump supported his campaign for the past years as senator. And also Donald Trump was Robert Kraft's friend. So right there, I was trying to ask Mr. Peter, who really has authority in that situation? Money has an authority. And so now, as you can see, Idaho's lieutenant decided to sign a bill while the governor was out of town, ending all the mask mandate. And I was telling him, as our last show, we were discussing the Democrats trying to still regain power within the House. But the Idaho's lieutenant and its governor are both Republicans. And I feel like it kind of doesn't really show who has true power right here. And I feel like it weakens the Republicans' hands. So then we started talking about who really has the power right now, which is money, and how the money has to align with the power. Say it one more time, Mr. Peters, before I say
so
it.
what I was sharing with Kennedy, she was struggling to understand the grasp of politics. And what I told her is, you got to think about, I said, typically, if you take us as African Americans, we don't come from a line. There are some exceptions, but we don't overwhelmingly come from a line of generational wealth in our families. We have a lot of first generation, second generation wealth. We have a lot of first generation, second generation middle class earners. So what that means, you're not self-funding your campaign, particularly if it's a statewide campaign, particularly if it's, don't let it be a national campaign, for goodness sake. So anytime you got to raise massive amount of money, what I told her, I said, is it really, the ultimate win is when you can align, you can do a good job of aligning your views and your ideologies and your platform with money that feels very similar to the way you do. I say, if you get out of alignment where your money supports something that you don't overwhelmingly, now you're in this Jocelyn Force situation, because you ultimately people tend to be responsible aligned to the power base of their constituency, not just their constituents. So that's what we're kind of talking. That should bring you up to speed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Charles usually has the opposite of opinion of me, so go for it, Charles.
Not so much an opposite opinion. I just think there are a couple things that you got to point out when you start talking about authority, politics, and money. Let's start with present day. One, Republicans have a problem with grassroots fundraising because they don't connect to the grassroots level. And I think that's what you're talking about, money aligning the way it should. Democrats are head and shoulders above on that. What Republicans have is the old way of raising money from large. What would you say, Leslie? 1%, third or fourth generation.
Mm-hmm.
They have riches and wealth.
Right. They operate between the 1% to 3%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's their bread and butter.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's the difference. And so when you have that, you have what would I say? I think what you're talking about as far as alignment is spot on, because you see alignment in those two things. How the money is coming out. You also see the filth in how money is raised. If you just took a step back and look at what Trump was doing post-election, he was doubling and triple charging people's credit cards and that type of stuff,
Wow.
because he was losing in the public opinion, but he also needed the money, so that he wasn't raising the money for the reason he told him he was raising it for anyway. So he was just taking advantage of his donors.
Yeah, and the fine print pretty much told you that, but most people don't read it.
Right.
Yeah. Then the other thing that you have to consider right now in present day politics is this: the Citizens United case that opened up fundraising. It opened it up, and so unless you have campaign reform where everybody is going to be paid for by the pool from the government, like it was in the past, then you're going to have those people who can self-fund. You're going to have those people who can add dark money. That's the purpose of PACs.
Right.
Political action committees, they do a LLC or do a nonprofit, and then they do a PAC, and then they pass the money darkly.
Yeah.
You don't know where it's going or how it's coming. So that goes to your question: who has the authority? What we have to always remember, though, is there's more to politics than money. Good old-fashioned shoe leather can beat money sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes it can't.
Just depends. And that's what I told her. Every election is different. It just depends. You know.
So in this election, what tools, or if it wasn't money, what really beat Trump in this election? Was it our vote, truly? Or
it was. So when you say beat Trump, are you talking about in the popular vote? You're talking about in the electoral college? You're talking about, tell me specifically what you're talking about, because even though it's the same election, I probably would answer it a little differently.
I would say more in the electoral college, because in both elections, in the past elections, the public vote outvoted Trump. But this one, the difference in this one, the main difference was the electoral college. Like what made the electoral college actually, where we won this election, it feels like. What was the difference?
Couple things. Now that we have more knowledge, I can say what I've always thought, and that is, in the Clinton versus Trump matchup, they cheated. Now we know that. In 2016, they cheated. What they did was they shared the polling data from the battleground states with Kalemnik, who was passing it on to somebody in Russia to assist with targeting those states. So if you look at the margin of victory, which was around 80,000 votes total in the three main battleground states, that's from cheating. They cheated.
Wow.
The other difference is, because Trump was such a polarizing figure, and because so much work had gone into the gubernatorial race for Stacey Abrams, Georgia was prime. And I kept telling Leslie this. He wouldn't, at first he wasn't a believer. He was like, "What are you talking about, crazy man?" And I told him Texas was prime. And I was breaking it down for him why I thought these states were prime, more so than Florida. Which I thought we had a chance in Florida, but Florida is one of those places where you cannot have that much separation, and it can go 1 to 3 in either direction.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought we had a better chance in Texas than we did in Florida this year.
Me too. I really thought Texas was going to go blue. I really did.
Well, here's what you have to remember. When did the vote take place? What was going on? What national emergency was going on?
I'm trying to think what was going on.
Oh, the coronavirus.
Oh, yeah. Prime example, yeah.
Yeah, and so which was one of the places that was hit the hardest without federal help the way they needed.
Texas.
Texas was.
More specifically, not just Texas, Rio Grande Valley.
Yes, more specifically, let's be honest. South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley, which is heavily Hispanic population.
Yeah.
Right. And
Latino population.
Yeah. And the okay, so that's one. Two, while the campaign wasn't really into Texas, and so you needed that money to get on the air with Spanish language, English, all those things to target the population that you needed to come out. The difference between Georgia and Texas is by land mass, you probably need what 7 or 8 Georgias to make a Texas.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So you think about the resources. So you think about the resources that you poured into Georgia, plus the decade of priming and registering and learning the nuances and helping set the law which is going to govern all of those things. That's why you had a win in Georgia. Okay. Texas, I felt very confident about Texas, but it started slipping right there at the end because you didn't have enough of that final push.
Right.
I see. And I guess it goes back to what you were saying, Mr. Peters, how everything, especially fundraising, is a huge strategy. It's just a huge strategy.
It's chess, not checkers.
In every state, though. It's almost like in every state while you think about it.
Yeah, because if you think about it, Kennedy, what is a presidential election? It's what 48, 50, it's 50, 50 small elections for president.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All different rules, all different requirements. And you probably take a gun to the polling place in Texas, but you gotta have ID to vote. Ain't that something? You don't need ID to buy a handgun.
Hey, you don't even need as of a week ago, you don't even need a license to carry a weapon in Texas. You just walk down the street like we in the Old West.
You actually don't. They actually finalizing that bill as we speak. I was also looking at that last night. So yeah, you
know. Like I don't even know what this is gonna look like. What, we're gonna walk down the street, people just walking with the gun out like we on bananas or something from back in the day. But
I still see it. I still see it in right now at work because right now I work at Kane, so all we sell is chicken finger meals. But some people still come up in here with their guns, so it's whatever. So I don't know. We'll see. But as we're going through this, I had a question just to piggyback off. I can't remember. Hopefully it'll come back to mind. But it was one thing that I thought I kind of wanted to, as we're going towards the end a little bit, I thought it was kind of rare. So last night, it's this school in West Point, Mississippi, and it's West Point High School. So it was 2 Black girls that won valedictorian and salutatorian. Towards the end, I think their graduation was just this past day or this past weekend. But, some white, old, good-fashioned white people started to complain to the schools and the administration. And so then the administration decided to inform those girls that they had to share that title with white students. And so they received a lot of backlash and everything like that. But I feel like in this situation, if numbers don't lie, and if those 2 Black girls outbeat the whole school, why is it that they have to share their title? Why is it that, Black people always have to share something that they won, or we have to, I'm co-valedictorian. You've never seen that before. And I feel like in this situation, I think what was in my mind was, well, who has the true authority here? Can you even overturn something like this, or can you even complain something like this to, the current school district or anything like that? It just didn't make sense to me. And I just thought it was kind of, mind-boggling a little bit, though. I've never heard of that. Never in my life. That you find out the day of your graduation that you got to share a title like that with a white girl. So,
well, you're a youngster. This is not something that's brand new in Mississippi in particular. The fact that they had the title first and they were not asking them to share with the white young lady is in and of itself a bit of a change in fortune. Unfortunately. But do they have recourse? Yes. I mean, violation of the due process, but when is graduation? I mean, You can end up fighting it, but it becomes a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah.
And I think this right here, it kind of made me want to bring it to topic because it just shows, even though it's not to this extreme, but about my research paper that I did this past semester, which was just the school to prison pipeline. In this situation, like in that situation, when it comes to schools, I feel like schools never really had the true authority to begin with. School districts never really had the true authority. I feel like it always had to deal with money, always had to come into play. Whether it was from, the Department of Education, like the federal level or not, money always had to come into play. Even with seeing my mother being an educator, and she was an educator in a lot of these in a lot of the hood schools, and I was in different schools with her, I could see the difference in the funding and what would be provided at schools. Even now with HBCUs and PW, it's a huge difference now. I think when I was younger, I kind of knew about it a little bit, but now that I'm a student that attends the HBCU, I can see the huge change. And I always tend to wonder a little bit who has true authority, even with, our president changing, from, Mr. Dr. Bynum to Mr. Hudson. I didn't know about, like my cousin had to really inform me. I think it's the IHL or something that had to change. Like, I didn't know any about that. I was kind of confused. I was like, so we don't have a board of trustees that choose our president? I was so confused. I was like, so who chooses our president and what's so? I don't know. I think in my life, I feel like in all of our lives, it's every day you don't really know who has true authority. And I think that's kind of why I decided to choose this title a little bit.
In a sense, you do know. In a sense, you do know. And here's where I'm going to challenge you. Here's where I'm going to challenge you.
Okay.
You just asked me about the political cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what you also vote on? School board.
Yep.
Okay, but how do we push that even more? A lot of people don't even know. Like, a lot of people don't even vote on school.
Well, this is the first step. You have to talk about it. Like you posed a rhetorical question, which you know the answer to.
Okay.
But you just didn't want to acknowledge it. You know the answer to this. You know these things.
You just didn't want to face the answer, but you knew the answer.
Right.
Okay, but
IHL is a little bit different because IHL is an appointed position by the governor.
Oh, okay.
That's a little bit different. That's higher education. And does Jackson State have trustees? Yes, they do. But they don't. All universities have some form of board and trustees that are independent to the school. Firing decisions for a public school is determined by the public board that governs the secondary education.
Yeah.
Which in Mississippi is the Institution for Higher Learning.
Okay.
And in fact, if you dig even deeper in your research, you will find that one of our classmates actually is on that board and has been appointed to IHL. And your dad probably knows well because he was in school. We were all in school together during the same time at Jackson State. Who
would that be, Leslie?
Yeah, who was that?
That'd be Dr. Cunningham, Steve.
Steven. I was just doing a little spot check. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, I'm not gonna say it if I don't know the facts. I'll just be quiet. I'll be over here like this.
So you know what? I had a question. Since you said I know the answer. So when I was doing my research about the school to prison pipeline, and one of the issues that it was the zero tolerance policy, how if I was a Black student, I did the same, or I showed the same type of behavior as my white peers, I would get the harsher punishment. I would be miss 10 informational school days, or it will continue to go on, or 10, ISS, in-school suspension days, stuff like that. That was my problem, not my problem, but that was what was my raise of questioning in my paper, and I brought to my teacher. How do you change policy like that? And it's not just, I had to look and realize it's in a lot of schools, like nationwide, not just, public schools and private schools. It's like in all schools, the zero tolerance policy, it varies. Each school did like school policy, but how do you alter that and alter the actual consequences? Because I think a lot of people don't know, when I was doing my research, students tend to act out in a lot of different ways. Sometimes they tend to act out because they don't have food on the table, they don't have lights. So then they tend to, disturb the class. Sometimes it could be a cry for help. A lot of times it's other situations that play a part into them acting out in school. But I just feel like it shouldn't be their fault that their education is taken away from them. How do you change that type of policy? Like, I know you have to vote on school boards, but how can a citizen like us, our taxpayer dollars, really, if we're sending our kids to public schooling, how can you make a difference? Who do I have the true authority, or does it the school board?
You alone don't. But when you pair your vote with, the rest of the community and you tell them why, well then proper light bulbs will go off, because who's really thought about what the policy for discipline is? You really don't think about that until you're about to get disciplined. So, it takes voices like yours who have a higher level of reasoning and education. That doesn't mean you talk down to people, but you educate them.
Okay.
If you think about the beauty of what made Barack Obama tick as a politician, it was back to his roots as a community organizer. Mm-hmm. He knew how to raise money because he knew how to connect ideas and issues, different groups of people.
Okay.
So you build a core around why that discipline policy is even important to begin with. Because most people think, when they think school, they think school colors, school pride, get an education, get a job, go to college. They're not thinking about the nuts and bolts of who becomes valedictorian or salutatorian, and are we violating any type of civil rights, or is the discipline applied in a indiscriminate manner? Is it applied equally to all races, socioeconomic? No, none of that stuff is being thought about on the outside. Those are inside conversations where if you don't challenge the composition of the school board and thereby challenging the actual makeup of the policy, then what's ingrained and what has a colonial bent to it, meaning that it's not geared towards dealing with Black and brown students. It's anti. But you got to remember, most of everything in society was anti, from slavery to Jim Crow to institutional racism. Why else would we have a segment on the show that talks about groups that don't want critical race theory talk? This is where you see that overlap.
Wow. Yep. That is true. And I think I want to inform the audience to let y'all know that if you really don't, you should always do your own research. But the reason why I feel like the school to prison pipeline is so important, because then you tend to push these students out of school. So then after that, they have idle minds. So then they tend to start doing illegal things. And then these illegal things turn them into being in jail. That's another body it makes money, that these private prisons and stuff like that make money off of these students. And then these private prisons fund some of these political campaigns and a lot of these, these PACs and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, when I sat back and actually my research, I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. It's almost kind of like a circle, like money make the world goes around, literally. So that's why I feel like that's just one topic right there. People just need to, sit back, try to figure out, break down, play your part, and figure out where you can, show your power and your true authority in your society.
I'm gonna tell you what this subject is.
I'll give you a simple one. How many people never go to school board meetings?
It's not a lot. A lot of people.
Unless it's a controversy, you probably could go get any seat you want to get at the school.
Right.
You probably could sit right next to them. If it's running a pandemic, Look, this conversation is going. I'm gonna tell you how serious it's gonna make me change my whole attitude. See, now I got to go. I'm gonna change. I'm gonna go blue, because see, you're gonna bring out the fiery side of me. Now, when you say school to prison, I'm going to challenge you on that. I'm going to play the devil's advocate, the other side of that. Okay. And I'm going to pull up an old blast from the past that you ain't going to know nothing about. But this is for all my generation Generation X's and above. What you talking about, Kennedy? What are you talking about when you say school to prison? What if I challenge you and say, I don't see how somebody finishing school could lead them to prison in any way. I don't understand that logic. I mean, they got an education.
That's not what she's saying, Liz. There's a super huge body of research out there that talks about the number of days missed from school correlates to likelihood for being in the prison.
I know what the research says, but I'm challenging it. I'm challenging it with some of the buffoonery I hear in the street. But I just want to see what her response is going to be. So what if I say, all right, Kennedy, what's stopping these kids from going to school? What do you mean they pushing them through? Are you saying they pushing them through without them adequately passing the requirements? What are you saying? Are you just saying they don't finish school? What are you saying?
I'm saying that the policies that are set in stone and put in place and that are enforced by administration is harming these kids' education and their academic success.
All right, stop right there. Name one. I'm going to make it easy on you. Name one. Give me one.
Policy?
One policy that does what you said, that makes it difficult for these kids.
One big policy is the zero tolerance policy. Right there. It's zero tolerance. And it's zero tolerance for multiple things. And that's why it varies so much. And it's not a set in stone type of consequence. On top of that, they can shorten the amount of days. They can enlarge the amount of days students get for suspension. And
you're speaking to disciplinary policy, correct?
Disciplinary policy, yes. Disciplinary policy.
And how it is applied is zero tolerance.
Yes.
Which does not allow for a good interpretation. That's what does.
It doesn't.
I'm gonna help you out because he's trying to trip you up.
Thank you, Dr. Irvin. I appreciate it, but it doesn't. Yeah, like I can, if I was in, and it's kind of crazy because looking back at it, it didn't really apply to me, but I could see how some of my teachers would kind of, I guess, not play devil advocates, but show favoritism a little bit. Like if I might, when I was a kid, I had a smart mouth a little bit. So if I would talk back in class, Kennedy, you need to stop, or you're going to timeout, or you just need to be quiet, like, well, reprimand me. But when my white peers would do it, oh, Sarah, you so funny. Sarah, you just so sassy. And I just used to be like, why? How is she sassy? But I'm being disrespectful. And, but even though she wouldn't, send me to the principal's office or stuff like that, it can go to that extreme and cause students to miss out on these informational days and hold them back. Then them students, it takes them even longer to graduate. Some of the students don't even get their GEDs and it just causes them to drop out. So
now here's where I get in trouble all the time. Because you know what I'm going to say to that?
What?
And let me give my disclaimer. This is not my beliefs or my thoughts. Because I do not want to get the hate mail. This is not how I really think. This is not really how I really feel. I'm just messing with Kennedy, and I'm poking a different side of it just for the sake of a healthy discussion. But this is not the views of Leslie Peters. I just want to put that out there because I know y'all come at a brother hard. So I just want to put that out there. Look, Kennedy, it sounds like to me what I'm hearing you say is the real problem is that zero tolerance is not zero tolerance. Zero tolerance is not zero tolerance because it's subjective. And as long as it's subjective, then it's never zero tolerance. It's zero tolerance when I deem it needs to be zero tolerance. If you take subjectivity out of it, now you got a chance for it to be evenly distributed, whether you agree with the policy or not. And that's our issue. You can't have a zero anything and you have subjectivity as a part of it. Because now I'm going to automatically have a preference to whatever my biases are. That's with anybody.
Okay.
So to me, that's the bigger issue that we have.
And that's where, critical race theory comes into play, structural racism comes into play, all that stuff comes into play. So, and I feel like, as we're going on, and I've seen some more research on how, certain states and governors and everything are trying to make sure that that's implemented in schools to learn what critical race theory is. Certain school districts don't want that to be taught. A lot of parents are. That's especially when I was talking about in our past research that I did with in South Lake, Texas. That's where you saw the most parents come to those school board meetings and start complaining. Racist white parents, I don't want that to be taught into my kids. That's where you saw some, support. But I feel like over time, I think people are starting to realize that, they have set, how can I say this? Structural racism has always been a thing. Whether good old Governor Tate Reeves wants to admit to it or not, it has always been a thing. So, you know.
What you say, Doc?
I'm thinking about segregation and how, even though we didn't have the same financial resources, there was no such thing as zero tolerance when we were separate.
Yeah, exactly. Prime example. No such thing.
I'm also thinking of how this issue, even though Kennedy is pinpointed it from an educational policy standpoint, this flows through everything that we talk about. Working in corporate America, policing, bread and milk for the house, driving while black, voting while black,
living while black, just living.
Yeah. So I mean, this is why you may have some resistance to critical race being taught is because what we're sitting here peeling the onion. What we're seeing is that, oh, okay, Kennedy is talking about it from this angle, but if I listen close enough, I can hear it from that angle and that angle and that angle. Those dots are never supposed to be connected in some people because we're supposed to be in a air quote post-racial America.
Yeah, it's definitely racial. Okay, but yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, okay.
Yeah, post-racial. I heard that somewhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think it's wonderful that the rhetorical question of the day is who has the true authority. I think probably we should move beyond that to ask, and what does that mean for the Black community? What does that mean for the Latinx community? What does that mean for the Asian Pacific community? And if that application of true authority is dollars means control, what does that mean for the white community?
Mm-hmm. No doubt. No doubt. So I think, bring up a lot of interesting points there. I think you said something, Kennedy, too, going back. You said, I think we can also look at certain school districts. And I think it's no secret. I can remember it stated in different terms when I was a youngster coming up. But the bottom line is, if you take any school district that has a stronger parental involvement, they show up for stuff. They do well, right? They do things. The classrooms are going to have what they need. Why? Because you got parents that's going to tell the teacher and mean it. Whatever you need, let me know.
Right, exactly.
And so when they have an issue that they feel strongly about, either or not, they're going to show up. They're not just going to talk and fuss about it. They're going to show up at the meeting. And they're going to take it a step further. And I think there's some lessons to be learned from that. That there was this old saying growing up, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Well, if you're not squeaky, nobody going to give you any oil.
Very true.
And I think in our community, we feel like there's always been this taboo thing that says, if you're loud, then that's not the right way to do it. You got to smooth. No, we have been quiet in some areas for far too long. And so you got to bring attention to stuff. So Attorney Irvin is right. You going and getting involved and encouraging and having these healthy discussions with your friends, with your peers is very important. But not only when you guys are having discussions, but then discuss what you can do, organize, get structured, and push your own movement.
I definitely see it. And I'm going to try to figure that out, especially so Hopefully soon, just bring more awareness to it, if anything. And where no matter what type of aspect, like what Dr. Irvin was saying earlier, driving while black, being black in the education system and other things like that, you gotta speak up, and you gotta start squeaking a little bit so you can get some oil, really. So as the show comes to the end, I kind of wanted to end it on a light note, just to bring some awareness, get some hyped up about the football season. I don't know if you know, JSU's been sending a lot of us students emails throughout the whole summer, but one was recently. At first, I thought we was nominated for an ESPY, but actually, we just got two. We were granted two ESPN national televised games. And I started realizing, Dr. Irvin, not Dr. Irvin, Mr. Pierce, like we was talking about this last show, how a lot of more students, even more, have started entering the transfer portal.
Yeah.
I feel like this is going to bring, even though Deion brings enough publicity to the school, I feel like this is going to bring even more publicity to the school because it's on ESPN. It's just like it's broadcasted nationally. So everybody get to see this. So I'm excited. I am.
Kennedy, but what I would say to you, and I want to say this to you and all of your fellow classmates, don't get discouraged by the amount of players entering the transfer portal. It's not just happening in Jackson State. It's happening at every school. Alabama got players in the transfer portal too. It's everywhere. This is a free fall this year because there's no penalty. You can go anywhere and play. So sometimes when you're a student, you can think it's just happening to you. It's just because you pay attention more if it's a Jackson State player.
Right.
But they're just making decisions what they deem is the best for them. And the reality is, if you bring in highly skilled players and that player is more skilled than you, you just got to make a chess decision, right?
This chess,
whatever that is, and that's what's happening. So don't get discouraged by that.
But I think, and I don't want to say money runs the school, but this will bring in a lot of more support, a lot of more money for the school. Hopefully it can solve some issues that we have, renovate some buildings, hopefully Stewart Hall will open up maybe. I don't know. Maybe fix the college.
Wait a minute.
It's gonna bring some money. As
no,
much.
Kennedy.
No. Why? Why, Dr. Irvin? Why?
I stopped you. Let me tell you something about academics and higher education. Okay. There's always this thought that when the money starts flowing, it's going right back to academics and housing. It's not.
It's not. It's not. It's going to athletics.
It's going to athletics. So yeah, if you're in athletics, yes, you may see a boost. What will happen from that is, though, what you will see is the more we get that type of national level of publicity, it will pull in a higher level of student. It will pull enthusiasm among the current student base, and those things will bring in money. But
more grants, more students, more tuition revenue. Like I can remember, I don't know what Jackson State's current enrollment is, but I remember when they hit an all-time high at 10,000. I mean, when you start doing that, that's gonna go.
Yeah, that
will hit the bottom line of the university on the academic side. But athletics is going back in athletics to grow athletics.
That money is going into the athletics. So here's a classic example, and Liz and I had these conversations all the time because we've been about the stadium ad nauseum for 20 years. 20 years. So, but here's what I always say. You have to build supply and demand. This is basic economic theory. Supply and demand. The reason why the SEC is the top conference in the country now is not only is because of weather and locale of universities. They use those things to help springboard them into a television contract. So you're talking about the difference between one nationally televised game on ESPN versus we have our own network.
Right.
So
what did they just give? $23 million to every school?
Yeah, to the member institutions. That's
how many buildings did that build? How many?
Well, when you become in a situation where you have the surplus, to meet the need that Kennedy is talking about because
Right.
they got TV revenues.
Right.
That one game is going to provide enough to get some hot dogs and some buns.
Exactly.
So wait,
exactly. Because I think it was a couple of the schools announced athletics weren't even taking any of that money out the deal because they already had a surplus anyway, just from all the other ways the athletics get funded.
So I do got one question, Dr. Irvin. I can't remember if we talked about this in your class or not, but I think we're saying since Dion is coming and how this might play, how I think the revenue will go back into the community. And you were saying how, you know, a lot of these, like the SEC schools are getting, you know, these contracts because of their location. Do you feel like if this will bring and the revenue will go back into the Jackson community, we start, you know, fixing our community, making it more pleasing? Do you think maybe we can one day hopefully boost ourselves into those type of contracts and make our location more appeasing to the public?
I wouldn't necessarily put that type of pressure on Dion. He will have a benefit long term to raising the profile of the university and the athletic department and the city, because there'll be people coming in, and as the talent base continues to increase, then pro scouts will be coming in. Because it really doesn't matter where you play. If you're good, they will come to you.
Right.
So, but what has happened is when you start talking about facilities and recruiting, it's hard to recruit a joker that's 5 stars who's been pampered his whole life, and you telling them to come to 1400 Lynch Street with potholes when they can go down to Clemson and they got a beach volleyball pit outside the football field.
Very true. I'm just trying to figure out ways to maybe, you know, make our location a little more pleasing to this. So then
there's nothing wrong with our location.
I don't think it is either.
I think it's awareness. I think it's campaigns of knowledge. I think it's winning. Yeah. If we win big, people are gonna come here and think Jackson is gonna be the best thing since sliced bread in a yellow bag called Sunbeam. You might as well know that. You might as well know it. What I would say, here's a hypothetical that you and your young man could work on for me. I've said this to several people, so I will give it to you. And that is, if we follow the same SEC model, why don't we have at least one black sports channel? The SWAC is now it's ground zero for sports and athletics in America for historically black colleges and universities. We need a TV contract.
We do. But, you know, I don't want to keep on dragging too long, but, you know, some people, they were trying to, like, I think a lot of, like, HBCU graduates were saying, you know, well, why don't BET, you know, broadcast our games and stuff like that? But I think people fail to realize that BET is it's not a black-owned network anymore.
No, it hadn't been black-owned since Bob Johnson sold it for,
I
forgot how many billion, how much money was a lot.
It was a lot of money. So
here's what I'm saying now. I'm not talking about just the broadcast of games.
Right.
I'm talking about our own network. Just like the SEC has their own network, Big Ten has their own network, Pac-10 has their own network.
Right.
We need to have a SWAC network, since we have now morphed into the top historically black college and university sports destination in all of America. We need our own network because the revenue that's gonna help lift every boat. Every school in the SWAC would benefit from.
Okay, you're right. I do see. I don't know how we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
So think about this, Kennedy. So if you do that now, because if you look at the SEC, for example, on the SEC network, you probably don't even realize those are students that do the reporting and and they're intern. They ain't even paid positions a lot, right?
Yeah, they
so they get trained in real world stuff. They got the best equipment. They learn how to work. So when they go into the workforce, they're already equipped to do the job right away because they've been doing it for the last 3 years on a major network that's broadcast out to millions of people every week. And look at the training ground of what that does. So yeah, I can give 23 million because my cost of labor ain't nowhere near that TV station because I don't have to pay those salaries, right?
Right.
So, but it's a training vehicle, and the students love it because it's an amazing training vehicle where they get to do real world stuff. And then the communications department that's housed in has the best of equipment so they can train.
Exactly.
So that's where you see it start employing, and then you can go and get sponsors, and you learn how to go sell the sponsorships for your network and to get those. All that's part of the business of it.
And then bring in more, students that aren't athletes, like you were saying, mass communication. Because our mass communication program, our department, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know, I feel like it's pretty good. But if we had that type of publicity and stuff like that, all of our students would have a lot of training. All of our students would have something like that under their belt and it'll be on their resume if we had that type of opportunity. So it'll bring in, I can see where you're saying how it'll bring in more students besides athletes as well. So I get it. I don't know. We got
two games, 2 nationally televised games. I'm ready for Florida right now. Charles, what say you?
I'm ready.
Kennedy, what say you? Do I have a third?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. Well, I do want to. This is kind of bittersweet because I think Kennedy, is this the last one before you transition and leave us?
Yes, because next Friday my family and friends gonna try to throw me a little party, so I don't know if I'll be able to see this one. Make it next Friday, but. Yeah.
So family
next Saturday. So yep.
Kennedy is headed off to DC to intern and do great things for the summer. I still expect her to be on the show at Showtime. You're an hour ahead, so you got an hour to get where you need to be on Friday, and still run the show. And but we're looking forward to you taking the things you've learned and doing even more and doing a great job. And Charles and all we're just a phone call away.
Thank you so much for letting me be here, putting me under your wing. I appreciate it. I'm definitely going, once I get my true work schedule, I'm definitely going to try to make sure I can come to the show and everything. But thank you. This was really fun, though. I really did enjoy it. It made me, I think one thing it made me do was hold myself accountable more, be more aware of more current events, not just what you see on, on TV, because not everything that's going on is televised. So it made me actually look up some of the stuff that's going on and everything in our world, not just political, but even some social, issues. So that's why I think I really did. This is my first internship, if you think about it. So that's why I really love it. So thank y'all. I do.
A good deal. Charles, last words, send us out.
Well, I think it's a holiday weekend, so everybody please be safe. Think about your surroundings. If you don't want to wear your mask, stay outside. Wave at your neighbor. You know what I'm saying? Let's be safe. Let's enjoy. And Kennedy, always wishing you well. You'll still have your position when you get back. So just keep that under your hat. Don't tell anybody. Just pretend nobody's watching and I said that out loud. But I'm extremely proud of you. I've watched you grow from being a very smart young lady to now smart and savvy. So I'm ready to see what the next step is after that. So wish you all the best, and we will see you when you get back.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right. Go ahead. Oh, and make sure, guys, y'all continue to click on our link so you can join our weekly live updates and everything like that. Make sure y'all join. But y'all have a safe weekend. Enjoy your family and friends in the good cookout. So bye, y'all.